funeral. Specifically, the funeral of the girl I used to be. It's May 2013. I'm standing there in this cramped little bedroom, taping shut the final box of my entire existence. My hands are shaking so badly that the packing tape just twists up, sticking to my skin like this cheap plastic web. I look down at the suitcase on the floor, and inside, it isn't just clothing, it's my whole life, completely compressed into 20 kilograms of pure desperation. Through the open window, the spring air just feels so heavy, literally suffocating. And he's standing right there in the doorway, just watching me. He isn't yelling today, no. He actually has this eerie, totally serene smile on his face. You know the kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand straight up. His mother is standing right behind him, and her voice is this sharp, cheerful knife cutting right through the silence. "This is gonna fix everything, sweetheart. A fresh start in Germany. New air, new rules. It's exactly what he needs to heal." I just look at my passport sitting on the nightstand. It honestly feels way less like a travel document and a whole lot more like a one-way ticket to my own execution. I mean, I'm 20-something years old, I don't speak a single word of German, and I'm about to willingly step into a cage carrying this desperate illusion that a change of geography can somehow cure a monster. Now, you might be wondering, looking at this, you're listening to a voice without a face, right? You're looking at shadows instead of actual features. And I know some of you are probably asking, if you're really free now, why hide? Why stay in the dark? Well, it's because justice isn't a straight line. The battle for my children's safety, for their future, it's an ongoing war. A war we fight in these sterile courtrooms against a system that still absolutely prefers the lies of an abuser over the very real scars of a mother. I hide my face, not out of shame, but out of a highly calculated strategy. I hide my face because when you're dealing with a man who genuinely believes he owns you, anonymity isn't fear, it is your armor. It's exactly how I take back my voice, syllable by syllable, without ever letting him see the eyes of the woman who is finally going to tear down his fragile house of cards. That drive to the border was completely silent. The only sound was the rhythmic, hypnotic thud of the tires against the asphalt, literally counting down the kilometers that were separating me from my family, from my 7 siblings back in Poland, from everything that actually made me feel human. Every time I looked out that passenger window, the landscape just felt like it was slipping away, retreating into this thick fog. We finally arrived at his father's house in the remote German countryside. A small, gray house, just sitting there under a gray sky. And the air inside, it smelled of stale tobacco, cheap beer, and this heavy, damp sense of neglect. The moment that front door opened, the trap snapped shut. His father was an alcoholic, a man whose eyes were just permanently glazed over with this bitter, deep-seated resentment. There was no warm welcome waiting for us. There was no magical fresh start. There was only a passing of the torch. Within 48 hours, all that eerie serenity completely vanished. See, the change of scenery hadn't cured my partner. It had simply unmasked him. Back in Poland, he had to hide his rage. He had a buffer, my large family. But here, out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by flat fields and neighbors speaking a language I couldn't even understand, he had an isolated audience of one. I clearly remember the third night in that house. The rain was just drumming against the thin glass of the bedroom window, this cold, relentless German rain. And an argument started over absolutely nothing. A look, a sigh, just the way I was standing in the kitchen. And suddenly, his grip was completely locked onto my upper arms. He didn't just push me, he violently pinned me against the cold plaster wall. My shoulder blades hit the surface with this dull thud, actually rattling the cheap picture frames hanging nearby. "You think you're special?" he whispered. His breath was so hot against my face, and it smelled exactly like the beer he'd been drinking all night with his father. My throat just closed up. I tried so hard to speak, but the words literally died in my chest. You see, the physical pain of his fingers digging into my skin was absolutely nothing compared to the psychological paralysis. I looked right past his shoulder at the television playing some German talk show. The people on that screen were laughing, gesturing, just living in this totally parallel universe. A world that honestly sounded like pure static noise to me. I was entirely, completely isolated. Just a ghost trapped in a foreign basement. And this is the insidious part of isolation that nobody really talks about. When you are entirely cut off from your native tongue, your own brain begins to gaslight itself. You literally start to lose your anchor to reality. When he told me I was crazy, there were no sisters around to call and ask for the truth, no neighbors to chat with just to feel normal. You just float out there in their manufactured reality. And then came his mother, the true architect of this exile. She was the classic enabler. She didn't stay in Poland, no. She pulled the strings from afar, visiting just often enough to reinforce the perimeter of my prison. She would sit right there at the kitchen table, slowly sipping her tea, just watching my bruised spirit with this awful, passive-aggressive pity. "You have to understand him," she would say, her voice always dripping with this artificial, highly calculated sweetness. "He's under so much pressure. You just need to be more patient with him. Don't provoke him. A good wife knows how to calm the storm, not start it." Do you see the absolute chilling cruelty of that design? Their gaslighting was flawlessly coordinated. While she laid down all the artificial sweetness, he delivered the brutal reality. "You have nobody," he would tell me. "You are nothing here. You don't even know how to buy bread without me." They worked perfectly together, ensuring the perimeter was never, ever breached. You have to understand, the system of a toxic family doesn't protect the victim. It fiercely protects the predator. They didn't send him to Germany to heal him. They exported him, just so they wouldn't have to deal with his wreckage back in Poland. They exploited my empathy, my massive heart, and my childhood conditioning. They literally used me as a human shield, a sacrificial lamb, just to keep their dark family secrets quiet at all costs. I was no longer a human being to them. I was a corrective facility, a tool meant to absorb his blows so his mother could sleep peacefully at night back home. And honestly, the most terrifying part? I actually began to believe her lies. I really began to think that if I just cooked a little better, if I just kept the house cleaner and smiled through all the fear, the monster would somehow turn back into the boy I thought I loved in high school. But the universe has a way of shifting the ground beneath your feet when you least expect it. It was late April. The nausea hit me first thing in the morning. And this wasn't a mild sickness. It was a violent, bone-deep exhaustion that left me gripping the edges of the porcelain toilet bowl, just shivering there on the cold tile floor. I counted the days in my head. Once, twice, and my heart completely stopped. I was pregnant in that dark, damp German house, completely surrounded by 2 generations of abusive men and a highly manipulative mother-in-law. A tiny heartbeat had just begun. I stood up, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. I looked at myself in the cracked bathroom mirror. And the paralyzed girl, the victim who always took the blame, she froze. But something else woke up deep inside my chest, a cold, ancient instinct, a fierce, protective mother's rage. I wasn't just a girl trying to survive a toxic boyfriend anymore. I was a habitat, and I was going to protect what was inside me, even if I had to literally burn this entire world down to do it. But the predator always senses when the prey changes, right? That very evening, he walked into the room. He had this look of absolute, terrifying triumph in his eyes. He casually dropped a mysterious legal document right on the bed. "We have a problem," he said, his voice dropping into this chilling, calculated register. "And there is only one way out. Sign it." That piece of paper was a trap, perfectly disguised as mercy. It was the ultimate snare, a piece of paper that would brutally alter the next 3 years of my life, pulling me so much deeper into a legal and emotional labyrinth, just as I had finally found my real reason to fight. If you are listening to this right now, and you feel like you're currently trapped in your own exile, whether it's a physical place or a dark mental prison, I absolutely need you to know that your story is not over. The silence you're keeping right now is just ammunition for your future. Please, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, share this explainer. Every single click helps push this voice right through the algorithm, actively breaking the silence that abusers rely on to survive. Help me tell the world exactly what happens behind closed doors, under the brand @ImMarriedToAStranger. We destroy their silence together. Stay strong.